All right, good evening everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of the APhA-ASP webinar series. Tonight's topic is going to focus on helping you prepare for submitting your chapter achievement reports. Just a few housekeeping items about the webinars before we get started. So on your dashboard panel there, you see a couple of different options for how you can hear the presentation. You can do that either through a telephone or through your mic and speakers. Right now, all of the attendees are on mute and in listen-only mode. If you want to ask a question, you're more than welcome to do that, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. But you can also ask a question one of two ways. You can either use the raise hand icon, which you'll see there as part of your dashboard, and one of our APhA staff members will notify you when you've been unmuted, and you can go ahead and ask your question. Or you can always type in your question. We also have members of the award standing committee here with us tonight that are going to help address all of the questions that you come in. So on the phone with us, and I do want to give a thank you to the current members of the Award Standing Committee who helped pull this presentation together. David Steve, the chair of the committee and current APhA-ASP National President. Jill Augustine, our vice chair. Libby Geisler, Cameron Jordan, and Johnny Carr. And you have myself, Crystal Atwell. I currently serve as the Director of Student Development. And in addition, joining us tonight and to help moderate your questions is Keith Marciniak, the Senior Director of Student and New Practitioner Development. So to get started, we have a poll question just to see what the level of participation has been with the chapter achievement reports. All right, sorry about that. The poll question's not working, so we're just going to go ahead. Whether you're new to the chapter achievement report process or you're doing this again as part of your duties and responsibilities at your chapter, one of the big things to know about the report process is the benefits for you as well as the benefits that happen within APhA. So I think one of the things that chapters forget is that this is a record of your activities that you can keep and use to look back and think about how your chapter has improved, the things that you worked on. So it is a historical record for you. It also serves as a way of allowing APhA to see what's happening on the chapter level and make any improvements to our programs based on the activities that you guys are conducting at the chapter level. And of course, we also use these reports to recognize the outstanding chapter accomplishments and activities of student pharmacists. So there are awards that are associated with these reports. We currently have 16 awards that we give away. There's the Chapter of the Year. We have divisional awards. The divisional awards are based on the enrollment at your colleges and schools or pharmacy. And the divisions are three. We have A, AA, and AAA. A being the largest, and that is colleges and schools of pharmacy with greater than 500 individuals enrolled. Our middle category, the AA, is greater than or 350 to 500 students, and then the AAA category is those schools or colleges with less than 300 students. We give away a divisional winner and a first and second runner-up award in this category. We also have specialty awards. You can see those listed there. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are the awards that come from additional reports. So you'll have your required documents, and then you'll have additional reports that you can submit if you would like to be recognized for one of these three awards. And we'll talk a little bit about those required and additional reports in just a moment. We also new this year added to our ceremony the Up and Coming Chapter Award. And that is for a new school, and by our definition, a new chapter is someone whose school has not yet graduated their first class of students and received their full accreditation. We did this because we wanted to recognize those new schools who had really laid a strong foundation for their APhA-ASP chapter and really set a benchmark for what those new chapters can achieve. So a full description of all of those awards and what they recognize can be found within the reporting guidelines that are available on pharmacist.com. So where do you get started writing your report? Hopefully before this evening, you have already gotten started. If your chapter doesn't have a system in place for keeping up with your activities throughout the year, that's one of the first things that you're going to want to get started on tonight. Because the last thing that you want is on July 14th, you're scrambling trying to pull everything together. So hopefully you have a system in place. A lot of chapters utilize online forms either through Google Docs or through your school's Blackboard system. Some chapters still use a paper system, and that's fine too. The big thing to remember is that you keep up with your information throughout the year. We actually recommend that you use our chronological list to use as a template for tracking your activities, and we'll go through what's on that chronological list in just a moment. If in keeping up with that chronological list, you have one of your required documents already taken care of. The other documents that you are required to submit as part of your Chapter Achievement Award report are these. So we have chronological list, we have an essay, which is comprised of different sections, so chapter leadership and operations, patient care, policy and advocacy, and professionalism. There's also an executive summary, a chapter statistical information questionnaire, and this is something that you'll actually be filling out online via our form site. If during the reporting cycle you have updated your constitution and bylaws, then you will need to resubmit those as part of your report. We also want you to submit your chapter goals and objectives from the reporting cycle. And then the final document is your submission confirmation form. So right now we're going to take a look at a little bit more in depth for each of those pieces. The first is the chronological list.
Crystal, this is Keith. Why don't I launch the poll real quick, and I need you to reset your slides because they don't seem to be advancing. So.
Okay.
All right. We're able to get that poll back up and running here. The first poll tonight is, have you previously participated with writing your chapter's achievement reports? And if you could please select one of those, that'd be great. And we'll make sure that the slides are working here. We're going to give everyone about 10 more seconds. All right, polling is now closed. And those results are right there. So it looks like about over half of you haven't actually participated in the process, and about a quarter have, and a quarter are not familiar, or are familiar with the process there. And let's go back to your slides there, Crystal.
All right, sorry about that confusion, everyone. So we are talking about the chronological list, and this is a template that your chapter can utilize in tracking your events throughout the year. You do want to make sure you use the chronological list to your advantage, and there's just a couple of pieces that I want to make sure to highlight as part of the chronological list so that you can take full advantage of them, and a couple of the points that we've gotten questions about. So the target audience, now this is the specific group or patient population in some cases that your chapter has targeted for that particular event. What we want to know is, in particular, when it comes to the patient care activities, if there was a specific population that you were trying to target. So maybe it's an indigent population, maybe you're focusing your activities on educating kids about a particular disease-related state. Whatever it might be, try to be as specific as you can with that target audience. It helps us understand why that event was important for your chapter to conduct. We also get questions about what is health and wellness services versus what is public relations. So I just want to take a moment to clarify and help you guys walk through understanding those. Health and wellness or clinical services are the interactions that you have with people participating in your event. So when you're speaking with someone about what diabetes is or helping them to understand the foods that cause heartburn symptoms, that is a health and wellness service. If you're actually screening them, so you're checking blood glucose or you're taking blood pressures, that means that you have provided them with a clinical service. And so that would fall under the patients who received health and wellness or clinical services. Patients reached through public relations. These are individuals who have seen an advertisement that you might have in your local newspaper, or potentially you wrote a letter to the editor talking about an important issue within pharmacy. Or in some cases, chapters will put up billboards. So it's the people that have driven by those billboards. That's what we consider public relations. You do want to try to track those numbers, and we do realize that it's typically an estimate, and that estimated number comes from readership or circulation if it's for print pieces. The billboard example that I gave earlier, those numbers would come from, you can get these from your local city information about drivers passing by, typical drivers that go by on that particular road. So it is possible to obtain that information. And again, we understand that it is an estimate. All right, so an event held in collaboration with, we do promote collaboration within your chapter activities, but we want to understand, based on this particular project, what level that collaboration was. So is it something that your chapter is directly responsible for managing? Or is it something that another organization, maybe your local American Diabetes Association chapter, approached your chapter to help out with a walk? So we want to help understand exactly what level of participation you had. Or was it something that you just had your chapter members go and help and volunteer with, but you didn't necessarily have an active role in coordinating or planning the events? So use that line to help us understand what your level of collaboration was. And then finally, we also want to make sure that you tell us whether this is a new event, so something that just started within this reporting cycle, or if it's a continuing initiative or event for your chapter, so something that's one of those activities you try to do every year within your goals for the year, something that you continue to build upon as a chapter. And lastly, I do just want to make sure to point out about the synopsis. This is 50 words or less, and while 50 words doesn't seem like a lot, you do want to take advantage of this opportunity to explain a little bit more about your event. So you've had an opportunity to kind of give us a broad overview through this bulleted list, but use that synopsis to maybe highlight any of the unique pieces about that particular event, things that made it special or that would make it stand out to the awards committee. The next required item for your awards reports is the essay. So within the essay, there are 4 different sections, and you do want to refer to your chapter achievement guidelines to get some specifics on what to include within each of these sections, because we do look for different things. They each have a 1,500 word limit, so each section 1,500 words only. If you don't use all 1,500 words for one of the sections, you can't carry over those extra words to use in another section. So 1,500 per section. Make sure that you do utilize those 1,500 words for each of those sections. And then getting into our final pieces of required information, the executive summary lets us know what you think are the most important successes for your chapter. So you're going to tell us what your top 3 successes are. And then the rest of the document provides us kind of with the numerical overview of your membership activities, as well as your participation and involvement within some of the national meetings and national projects and programs that APhA and APhA-ASP have to offer. The statistical information, you do fill that out online via our form site. However, within the reporting guidelines, you will see all of the questions that you're going to be asked to complete online. There are going to be questions about your chapter structure, your school structure, as well as some of the major membership activities that you participate in, and your chapter communications. So what you want to do is take a look at that piece within the guidelines, get those question answers, go pull the information for wherever you may need to pull it from, then go online once you've filled out the form on paper, then go online and fill in that information. We ask you to do it via our form site because we're trying to get information for every one of the chapters, and so it's easier for us to evaluate that information through the form site once everybody's done completing. And then the final piece is the confirmation form. The confirmation form is the document that your advisor is going to sign that will verify what information you've submitted for your chapter achievement reports, as well as what documents you've submitted for your patient care projects. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But it also means when your advisor signs that they verify that all of the information within that report is correct and has been accurately reflected your chapter activities. So that is something that your advisor is going to sign after they've reviewed your reports and again verify what it is that your chapter is going to be submitting. We do require that everybody turns in this confirmation form regardless of what you've submitted. So if for some reason your chapter is planning to not submit any reports, we do want your chapter advisor to sign off and indicate that on this report form. And that's something that's going to be new for this year. We'll come back to that confirmation form a little bit further when we talk about the submission process for your reports. So in addition to those required documents, and just to recap, that's the chronological list, the essay, the executive summary, statistical information form, your chapter bylaws if they've changed within the reporting cycle, and then the confirmation form from your advisor. You can also submit photographs and supporting materials. So for the chapter achievement report document, you can submit up to 15. We do want you to submit these photos as JPEG files or separate image files outside of your Word essay document. And part of the reason that we want you to do that is because we love using your photos for Student Pharmacist Magazine, for some of our other PowerPoint presentations, or you may have even seen your pictures this year on the big screen at annual meeting. So having your photos in a separate file makes it easier for us to utilize them. And I would also say that when it comes to submitting photos, try to submit the highest quality photo that you have. So the best resolution of your photos that you have from your chapter's events. The better the quality, the more likely that we're going to be able to use that photo. Supporting materials, you can submit up to 15 of these with your chapter achievement report. Supporting materials are original documents. So while we encourage you to utilize some of those pre-made patient materials, say the CDC immunization fact sheets, we don't have to see those. You can talk about using them within your chapter achievement report, either the essay or the chronological list, but we've seen those items, so we don't need to see them through your supplemental materials. But if you created some unique original document that you've been using as part of your activities, maybe it's a newsletter, or maybe it is some new patient information sheet, you can submit those, and we encourage you to do so. Also videos, more and more chapters are utilizing YouTube for some of the promotion that they're doing, so either by including that link in your reports, or if you're able to actually submit the video file, we want to see those too. And another example is newspaper clippings. That would be an example of supporting materials. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that in order to qualify to win either the Most Improved, Innovative Programming, or Outstanding IPSF Activity Award, you would need to submit an additional report. So with that report, you're going to be able to submit 1,000 words for each of those reports. And in addition to that 1,000-word essay, you can also submit for each of the additional reports up to 10 more photos and 10 more supporting materials. We have gotten questions about the Innovative Programming Report and exactly what that means. The Innovative Programming Report could focus on one of two things. So programming may be one individual unique event that your chapter has created and implemented, or it could be an umbrella of topic, and you've done several events all within that area. So for example, maybe your chapter had an innovative career development series at your school, and you had a fair day where you brought in different employers and exhibitors. Maybe you did a CV writing workshop, or several events that help support those career activities. So that would be an example of an umbrella type event that was unique and innovative for your chapter. It was a series of events versus a one-time innovative unique program. It could be either one. You just want to make sure that your innovative program falls within one of those two areas. And again, for these additional reports that you could submit, we do have very clear guidelines written out for you on what we're looking for, both within your essay and, again, reinforcing the additional photographs and supporting materials that you can submit. So a little bit about the formatting and what your document should look like. For the essay, we do want to make sure that you submit a Word document or PDF. We ask that it's double-spaced so that it makes it a little bit easier for the awards committee to read and take notes. And we request that you keep it at a 10-point font, so because some of the documents can get very lengthy, we do want to try to be as green as we can. So that's why we've got that font request in there. We do want to make sure that you include at the end of each of your sections a word count. Again, for the main essay, you are only allowed to use 1,500 words per each of those 4 sections. And probably the most important part is making sure that you've got your chapter's name and what report it is as part of your formatting. Labeling, just to make sure that we have the right information from each of the chapters, and you'll see an example of this as we go through the submission process. We want to have your chapter's name, what the document is, and if there are any numbers associated with your list. So an example there would be the pictures. You'd want to include how many pictures. So picture number 4, you'd want to include that as part of the actual name. And you can see some examples that we have here on the slide. So University of Arizona essay, and that's their document. That helps us make sure that we keep everything straight and very organized as we're going through and checking all of the reports and getting them to the awards committee. So as a reminder, chapter achievement reports are due July 15th, as well as the patient care project reports. And I just want to briefly touch on these. Again, there are guidelines available for each of these reports. They're somewhat similar to your chapter achievement report, and you have an essay, you'll have a section for the executive summary, and you'll do this for each of the different reports that you're submitting for. The confirmation form, it's one confirmation form for your chapter achievement reports and your patient care reports. So you don't have to submit multiple confirmation forms from your advisor. That will be just one item. and then you'll submit your patient care reports in the same manner that you're going to submit your chapter achievement reports. Again, all of those are due on July 15th. The other big reports that we have, Generation RX and Project Chance, those are due in January. So January 5th is the reporting deadline for those. Just want to make sure that we clarify that. So to get into one of the areas of change for this reporting cycle, I am going to hand things over to Keith Marciniak, who is going to walk you through the process of submitting your chapter achievement and patient care reports.
Before we do that, Crystal, we have a couple questions that kind of popped up. First question is so would Generation RX presentations be considered clinical or public? To be able to answer that for us when we have the executive summary that says wellness and clinical activities.
Sure.
Would that be considered underneath there?
So the presentations that you're doing, whether they are Generation RX or heartburn awareness, because you are in a room with patients and you're providing them with education and an opportunity for them to ask questions or come up and discuss further with you, that is going to be a health and wellness service. So it would go under that area versus the public relations area.
The second question, Crystal, is can a chapter submit more than one chapter innovative programming report for different projects? Can you do more than one innovative program?
Sure. No, you need to submit only one innovative programming report for your chapter. So again, you can have that umbrella topic of programming, and if those activities fall within that umbrella, then you can report on those multiple projects that support that one overall innovative program, but you cannot submit multiple innovative programming reports. You want to sit down, and if you've got multiple things going at the chapter, decide which one you feel is the most innovative and creative.
Great, thank you. And then from Crystal, does FarmFlix count for supporting materials for videos?
FarmFlix is, we do want to know that you've participated in FarmFlix, but you will have already submitted that video in, and it is a different type of grading process. So I would say keep your FarmFlix videos separate of your supporting materials, but within your essay, make sure that you, or within your chronological list, you make sure that you talk about participating in the FarmFlix events.
Great, thank you very much. We do have several questions that have come in, but what we'll do is we'll try to answer those as best as we can throughout the presentation here. There's a couple specific ones that I see Pamela and Christina have written in, and I'll try to answer those as best as possible. But what we'd like to do is kind of walk you through our new process for submitting your Chapter Achievement Award reports. For those of 48% that aren't familiar with the process, we used to have APhA and APhA-ASP used to have an FTP site, which is a file transfer protocol site. And we found that it's very difficult for the chapters to use. That's not Mac-friendly. So we've been trying to find a way for APhA-ASP to receive the reports from the chapter that's easy for you to use on your end, but then also easy for us as well. So what we're doing this year, we'll try it out, see how it works, is we've created a Dropbox account. And that Dropbox account, if you can see my screen here, is the APhA-ASP account. And what we're going to go through within our Dropbox is we are going to invite every chapter to be a user on that specific account. So I'll send an email to both the chapter advisor as well as the chapter president at UVille. And then it's your responsibility as the chapter advisor or chapter president to then invite whomever you'd like on your executive committee to become a user on that specific folder. By doing that, your chapter members, whomever you'd like, will then have access to it, and you're able to add and delete files on there as you wish. I know a lot of chapters already have a Dropbox, and we felt that it was easiest if APhA-ASP was the owner of the Dropbox as opposed to your chapter owning it and then inviting us to yours. It's kind of semantics because we'll all be sharing the same folders. but we felt that this was the easiest way to go about doing this, especially since we wanted everybody to follow the same system. So kind of on the back end, the Dropbox you can use through Internet Explorer. You can use it through any of the Mac operating systems that are available. You can also download Dropbox to your desktop. And so this is kind of what it looks like from the web side of things. And I'll actually go through and show you what it looks like once you download the Dropbox software. All I do is open up my Dropbox folder down here in my right-hand corner, and these are some of the files that we have for APhA-ASP. For purposes of showing you how we'd like your Dropbox to look, what I've done is created the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences chapter report folder. So it would be under chapter region 6, and you would only have access to your folder, which is actually the nice part about the system is the FTP site, anybody could have access to it. Any chapter could go into another chapter's folder and look through the materials. If, we hope this didn't happen, but if somebody actually deleted it, that may have happened. This is actually a much more secure system because only the people that you invite are able to look at your folder. So this is what it would look like on the back end, on our end, in utilizing the web version. But if you actually looked and used the option on your desktop, this is how we want things organized. And this is very, very important. We found that many chapters actually like to create multiple folders for submitting their Chapter Achievement Award reports. We would like everything in its own neat little folder here, and these are the only folders that we'll accept. So Crystal went through and talked about the requirements for all the reports that we have, and talked about the naming. And the naming is actually super important because we need to be able to find out as student development staff as well as the APhA-ASP Award Standing Committee how you're naming your files so that we can easily access those. So the name of this chapter, so in this case it would be Arkansas Chapter Bylaws. Bylaws are required that you submit those every time you update them, but I think we'll actually ask this year that everybody sends us an updated copy. Your chronological list, your essay, your executive summary, your goals and objectives for your chapter. And then, as Crystal mentioned, everybody has then the opportunity to submit pictures, and that's up to 15, and then SM is supporting materials, and that's up to 15 as well. And these are the ones that we'd like. This is exactly how we'd like you guys to label these as well. And this is super important because that's part of the rules for submitting the chapter achievement reports. If things aren't labeled correctly, then we don't know what the file is, then you're not going to get credit for it. And we're going to actually be very strict about that this year. Programs such as Innovative, IPSF, and Most Improved. We don't want you guys, starting up and creating a new folder that says IPSF or something along that lines. We'd like for you guys just to keep all of the files, if they're chapter achievement related, in this specific area. So please do not create a new folder. We don't want to see that. We want to see all of the folders in here, primarily because it's easy for us to just go through and then copy and paste all of these and put these into either a flash drive or put these on our shared drive at the association so that staff is able to access have access to these. So this is the way that we'd like to see everything. Obviously, Arkansas, I copied and pasted files. They did all of the reports last year, so hopefully every chapter will be submitting these. So in regards to all the other patient care projects, we would like these separated in their own folders, and we'll use Generation RX as an example. So Arkansas's report, their chronological list, their executive summary, their pictures, and as you can see, it's named GRX, so Generation RX for the supporting materials, and then their submission form. This is how this should look, and as you go through heartburn, diabetes, heart, immunization, Project Chance, they should all look the same. And then this final award submission report, as Crystal mentioned earlier, we want you to not only tell us about your patient care projects that are due July 15th, but then also your Chapter Achievement Award reports. So that'll all be in one form, and if that could just kind of be hanging out here in your folder. So what we would see is your chapter name. It says Chapter Reports. Click on here, and then staff and the Award Standing Committee would have access to that. I'd like, if we can, to open up any questions, because this is very important. This is probably the newest part of the process that we're going through. So does anybody have any questions in regards to this? And by doing this, I'm also going to change the presentation back to Crystal.
All right, thank you, Keith. I'm going to pause here, and if you've got any questions.
I do have questions. It just took a second for people to type them in. Deborah Boda wrote, where do we go to download Dropbox? That's a very good question. Most chapters already have this, so find out if your chapter does have an account with Dropbox. But if you find out that your chapter doesn't have a Dropbox account, it's very simple. It's www.dropbox.com. Very simple for you to create your own account within Dropbox. And if you want to use your chapter's name, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to use your personal name and just share that with your chapter's folders, you can do that as well. But once you download, once you create an account, it'll ask you to download the actual Dropbox folder to your desktop, and you kind of run it from there. And then Paul Morrow wrote, who is the primary contact for any Dropbox-related issues? I'm not quite sure that I understand Paul's question, and I'll try to contact you one-on-one, Paul, to kind of ask you for a little bit of clarification there. But myself or Crystal Atwell would be the two people who you contact if you have any issues with your Dropbox or creating your Dropbox file. Within the next few weeks here, what we're going to do is start inviting all the chapter advisors and all the chapter presidents to share or join the Dropbox folder that we've created. So that does allow you most of the month of May and June up through July 15th to open that Dropbox up. I'll turn it back over to you, Crystal.
All right. Thank you, Keith. Again, the address for Dropbox, the software that you can download, is on the screen there. So if you want to jot that down, you can. And then the overview of the folders for the reports that are due on the 15th. And just to clarify one more time, Generation RX and Project Chance are due on a different time frame. They are due January 5th, 2013. So July 15th, we're looking for your chapter achievement reports as well as the 4 national patient care projects. So once you submit those documents on July 15th, APHA staff will begin the process of verifying what you've submitted based on your confirmation form. If everything in the folders matches what you have said you've submitted on the confirmation form, APHA will not contact you. This is a little bit different in the past. The FTP site could be a little bit precarious, so we did want to contact and verify with you what we received via the FTP site. But because you have the same view that we do of Dropbox, you should be able to see what you've submitted. We won't delete anything from your Dropbox. We'll simply copy it over into our systems. So if everything matches the confirmation form, then you won't hear from APHA staff. If for some reason there is something additional in the folder that hasn't been checked off, then we will contact you, or vice versa. If something on your confirmation form is supposed to be there and it's not, then we will also contact you for that. Now within the Dropbox system, everything does have a timestamp in it, so do make sure that you've submitted everything by July 15th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There is a timestamp that's going to be on there, and any documents that are submitted past that the reporting deadline will not be accepted for review for the committees. Once APHA staff has verified all of the reports and information, and we've gotten them into our system, the reports are then sent to the to the Award Standing Committee for review. So the Award Standing Committee from August until about mid-November will be reviewing individually the reports. A separate committee reviews each of the patient care reports. And this is important for you to note because you don't want to refer to the separate patient care reports as part of your chapter achievement report. The committees are separate and the award processes are separate. So don't refer to your chapter within your chapter achievement reports to any of your patient care projects, because those documents aren't going to be viewed by the same group of individuals. In November, the Award Standing Committee will come in on site and they will discuss all of the eligible chapters. collectively to select the recipients based upon their rankings, summaries, and discussion. If necessary, the committee might request additional information or clarification. But once the award standing committee has made their decisions, all of those decisions are final. And the winners of the chapter of the year, those divisional awards, specialty awards, are all announced during the student award ceremony, which is held on Monday evening of our annual meeting. So in addition to recognizing your year of success through the chapter achievement reports, we also recognize your long-term success and improvement through our chapter performance system. So this is a system that's relatively new for us. We use it to track your progress as well as helping you identify different areas of improvement with your chapter. If you did have an opportunity to meet with the award standing committee this year during annual meeting, then you saw your performance review report. It's based on a scale of 0 to 5 stars, and basically a 0 is you didn't submit anything. If we don't have any documents from you, it's very hard to evaluate your performance. And then we go from 0 up to 5, 5 being the most outstanding performance of the chapters. The areas that we look at within this scale are your membership activity, leadership, and then those different sections within the essay as well: patient care, professionalism, policy, and advocacy. These are the major areas of programming and development that APHA focuses on nationally, and that we work with you on and encourage you to incorporate into your chapter programming. So your overall evaluation comes from looking at all of these areas. And if you're wondering what your star currently is, that information is provided again within the reporting guidelines and is available on the website if you want to refer back to those. You can also, if you weren't able to get a copy of your performance review, we do have those available, and you can submit an email to request those. The only caveat there is that if your chapter didn't submit anything last year, then you wouldn't have a feedback form available. All right, so I am now actually going to hand things over to Jill Augustine, Vice Chair of the Award Standing Committee, and she is going to provide you with some tips of success and words of wisdom based upon what the Awards Committee saw last year. So, Jill, go ahead and take things away.
Crystal, it's Cameron. I'm actually going to start off for us.
Okay. So,
and then Jill's going to finish up the presentation.
Sure. So Cameron, go ahead and take things away.
Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm Cameron. I'm obviously one of the members of the Awards Standing Committee and a final year student pharmacist. So after reading 100+ chapter achievement reports, the Awards Standing Committee did have some tips for you all to just consider when writing your reports. So one of the things that we noticed is that some chapters have a system for documenting their patient care projects as they take place. This is definitely something that we would encourage for chapters that don't have this in place, or chapters that are maybe still refining this process. It's really hard to remember what happened last August when you're trying to write this report in June. And so having an ongoing method for documenting these projects really will just make your life easier as it comes time to start writing things. We would refer you to the reporting guidelines that are on the APhA-ASP website. There's just some things in there about style, and again, reminders about all the different guidelines and rules for writing the reports. We do suggest that you designate specific people to write the reports. Too often we hear that no one is really sure whose responsibility it is, and it comes to July 12th and no one has really taken it on, and so someone just does it really quickly. And in the end, your report won't be as good as it could be if you just go ahead and designate now, a person or a group of people who will be responsible for writing their reports. Also, we encourage you to have several people proofread these reports. If you're the one writing it and then you've read it over 10 times, it's really hard to catch your own mistakes. And so having multiple people, other student leaders, your advisors, maybe even other faculty members that aren't involved with APhA-ASP, proofread these reports will really just help catch some of your grammar and style errors before you submit them to us. So the chronological list, a few things that we want to point out. Please don't double space the chronological list. I know as students, it's our instinct to double space things, but we really would prefer that it's single spaced. It's just hard to read and to kind of keep up with things when you're double spacing and we can only really get one, maybe 1.5 events per page. It makes the chronological list really long and really daunting for the awards committee. Also, this is a chronological list, so although I know some chapters like to organize their events by patient care and then policy and advocacy, you can do that for your own purposes, but for the purposes of submitting your chronological list to APhA-ASP, it's a straight chronological list. So it starts June 1 of last year, and it will continue through May 31st of this year. Something we do want you to do is to indicate whether an event is new or something that you're continuing from previous years. This is one really easy way for us to see innovation in your chapters if you do have new events that you're holding. And then for things that you have multiple times during the year, so chapter flu shot clinics, those sorts of things, we want you to list it as one item in your chronological list. So for example, if your first chapter meeting is in the month of September, you'll list chapter meetings in where it would fall in the chronological list in September, and then just add in the other dates that event occurred. So, if you have a chapter meeting once a month, then you'll have all of the dates there, but it'll just be listed one time. Again, it's really just easier for us rather than reading the same thing 8 to 10 times. So writing style, again, like I mentioned, have multiple people edit all of your documents just for grammar and spelling and for stylistic suggestions. Please don't give us laundry lists that don't have detail. If it doesn't really add anything to the report, then it's not helpful for us. With acronyms, please remember that, I'm from a school in North Carolina, so the folks over in Tennessee, I don't know what your acronyms mean. So make sure that the first time you use anything that has an acronym, you specify what it stands for, and then you can use the acronym later in the report. It sounds silly, but please no naked ASPs. It's always APhA-ASP. I know some of your chapters may refer to yourselves as the ASP chapter at your school, but anytime you're submitting any sort of official documentation, it is always the APhA-ASP. Also, don't use I. So these reports should be written from the perspective of your chapter, not from your own personal perspective. And avoid using names of people within the reports. So I don't necessarily know who Jill is, but I know who your finance chair is or your membership chair. So make sure you're telling us sort of what their role is instead of just giving us names of people that we don't know. So goals and collaborations. Goals, be specific with these and be formal. I know that a lot of times exec committees will have meetings and you'll kind of just take brief notes and they're little fragmented thoughts. And that's fine for your own purposes, but for submitting it to APhA-ASP, please make sure that they're full sentences and that they're a little more specific about what your goals are. If you do choose to include these, address whether or not you met them, whether you're kind of on your way there but you're just not quite finished, or if it's just not something that ever really came to fruition. With collaboration, like Crystal mentioned before, we love to see collaboration with other groups. But it is helpful if you will define what APhA-ASP's role was in each event that you collaborate on. So whether APhA-ASP actually organized the event and recruited other organizations to participate, or whether maybe it was the other way around and you're helping another group out with something that they organized. This definitely applies also to umbrella organizations. So if you have, also your ASHP chapter and your state organization under one umbrella, make sure you're reporting events that are initiated or conducted by APhA-ASP. And tell us how many APhA-ASP members were present at the event actually for APhA-ASP. So even though some of your APhA-ASP members are also members of, say, PLS, if they're there representing PLS, it's really not something that APhA-ASP can take credit for. And with that, now we will turn it over to Jill Augustine, the Vice Chair of the Award Standing Committee.
All right, thank you, Cameron. Jill, take it away.
Thank you again, Cameron. We just wanted to give a couple more points and tips when writing these reports. Consider your writing style when writing these reports. We want things to be very concise. As you can see with the example on the slideshow, the first one is not very helpful. It is very verbose and doesn't really give us anything, whereas the next example is very concise. It tells us what we want to hear as well as what we want to see. So just please be considerate of that when writing your reports. And Crystal, next slide, please. So again, please make sure that acronyms, the do's and don'ts example, as you can see, the first one does have several acronyms that we as the Award Standing Committee may not be familiar with. And so when you are first using an acronym, please make sure that you spell it out the first time. And then any subsequent use, you can use the acronym as long as it's specified previously in the document. Next slide, please. Finally, please make sure that your reports do not have any track changes in them. This is a professional document that you are sending to APhA-ASP to be read. Please make sure that it is professional in that kind of example. You can see how very confusing it is. One document we received last year did have track changes in it and had a comment made by somebody who was editing it of, did we actually do this event? And that kind of looks really kind of poorly for us if you do have track changes, as well as it gives us an example of kind of what we can see. So just make sure that when you are finalizing these reports, they are finals, they don't contain any track changes, and they are very professional in their writing. Next slide, please, Crystal. Also, we wanted to make sure everybody is aware there were common missed things from the report which allow us not to be able to kind of judge your report and be able to have your chapter eligible for an award. So when doing these reports, please make sure that you include all parts of the essay and that they are all specified. As you saw previously, there is a specific layout as of titling things in different parts of the essay, so please make sure that you do that and include all the parts. Also, please make sure that when you are discussing what happens, that you have general meetings, what happens at your general meetings. Do you have speakers? Do you have activities? Do you have discussions? Just give a brief description of what happens at your general meetings. Also, please indicate what your overall meeting attendance is, as well as event attendance, so that we can see that what's going on at meetings and what's happening. Also, with the New Practitioners Network kind of really revving up, we do want to see if if your chapter has been involved with any of the new practitioners and what they've been doing to help your chapter and anything like that. So please make sure that you do indicate if you've had some contact with them and involvement from the new practitioners. Also, please include some level of membership and involvement. Did you have first-year students, second-year students, third-year students, all-year students kind of thing? It's really great for us to see when you have multiple classes working at events. Finally, including an operating budget in the fundraising section. This is really for us to see how effective your fundraisers were, not necessarily for us to see how much money your chapter may or may not have. We just like to see, did your fundraiser go off well, and then, kind of in lieu of that, how much money it kind of made. Finally, we would like to see an executive board structure. You can submit a chart if it would be easier than explaining the executive board structure, and that could definitely go under supporting materials. For it, it can be very simple, and you can definitely reference that and save yourself some words in the first part of the essay. And then finally, how members were involved at each event. Give an example. Were they helping out educating patients? Were they giving different educational sessions? Were they giving, flu shots or anything else like that. So just let us know how they were involved. And Crystal, next slide, please. So finally, we do want to give some top 10 tips for chapters to have and to think about. The first one, less is more. Please avoid the fluff. We've said this multiple times. You know, be very concise in your wording. The second one, please add pictures. The pictures do add to the report, and please cite them in the report if you do submit these pictures with the report, and then include them in your Dropbox form. Please make sure you complete all requirements for the awards, completing all parts of the essay as well. This makes you eligible for the awards, and we do like giving an awards. Finally, or fourthly, keep the chronological list in an orderly fashion. Make sure it's single-spaced, in order, and then grouping common events together. Make sure you spell out any abbreviations and any acronyms that you may have used. And then 6, make sure that you write as if the committee knows nothing about you or your chapter. So please make sure that you are telling us everything we need to know and don't assume we know anything. Next slide, please, Crystal. Next one, please explain whether projects are something newly developed or whether they are continuing events. This was something that was added last year, so we do want to make sure that you do indicate that, as well as we do want to see that your chapter is developing new events and not just continuing the same events year after year after year. When you do, the 8th one is when you do collaborate on an event, please give details about what each group did or each organization did so that we do know what specifically APhA-ASP members did at the event. 9 is leave out anything that the committee does know. We do know what the APhA-ASP national officers and regional officers do. We do know what their positions are. So please just leave out any discussion of those. And just make sure that that will save you some very precious words when writing these reports. And finally, number 10, submit the final version of the report. Again, like we discussed before, this is a professional document that you're turning in. Please make sure that it is professionally written. Please watch for any misspelled words as well as the track changes. We just want to make sure that we can read these appropriately. And that you are not getting docked any kind of, we are not looking down in any reports because you have misspelled words or track changes. And finally, I will turn it back over to Crystal to finish up.
All right, thank you very much, Jill and Cameron. Those were some great tips. So just to kind of wrap things up, some of the resources that you're going to go to after we end tonight's session. The complete reporting guidelines, these are going to give you all the ins and outs and all the details on what you need to submit, the way you need to submit it, and the actual process of submitting your reports. The guidelines, the updated guidelines have not yet been posted to the website. However, most of the documents that you're going to be submitting and how you need, what you need to submit is the same. The big change for this year is in the how you're submitting. So we're moving to the Dropbox system instead of the FTP site. So if you want to go ahead and start taking a look at the chronological list, what you need to have in your essay, and start getting those documents together, then you can go ahead and do that. Our goal is to have the updated guidelines posted to the website around May 1st. So you'll have those in plenty of time to start writing your reports and getting them together. We have been recording this particular webinar session, so if there's something that you missed, you want to go back and listen to again, or maybe one of your chapter members wasn't able to participate tonight, you can refer them to this recording, which, again, along with the guidelines, is going to be posted on the website, so pharmacist.com/students, and it'll be in that awards and scholarship section. So with that, I'm going to open it up, and Keith, what questions do we have?
Well, I'm going to unmute Autumn Bagwell. Autumn, if you can use your either telephone or your computer speaker to ask your question. We'll go from there. You now unmuted, Autumn.
Yeah, I was just wondering, for the chapter meetings, do we need to report like an average attendance for all of the meetings, or do we need to report in September we had 100 people, in October we had 120, like that? And then also, if we have a unique chapter meeting, should we report that separately or keep it in the group?
Great question, Autumn. So if it is your monthly meeting, so every first Tuesday of the month you have your typical chapter meeting, you want to keep that grouped all together, and you can report your average attendance for those meetings. But if you had a special meeting, say in the month of October for American Pharmacist Month, and you brought in a pharmacist in a unique practice setting to help talk about American Pharmacist Month and what they do there, then you would want to break that out separately of that standard chapter meetings set in the chronological list. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess I wouldn't know exactly what to specify as like a special one, because we've had a lot of like really great speakers, so I don't know if I should list those in a paragraph together, or I don't think I could highlight all of that in the 50-word criteria for the synopsis.
Sure.
So, but I don't want to list a bunch of separate events.
So what you would want to do in that case is use your 50-word synopsis to say, you know, we bring in special speakers, give us the numerical value of how many special speakers, and just try to utilize that 50 words to your advantage. But if within there there's something really important that you want to highlight, then use that within your essay in that leadership and operations section, so that you can talk about it a little bit more. Within the essay, what we're looking for is for you to really expand upon those special, unique things, how you do what you do and why you do them, and then as Cameron and Jill alluded to, the success that comes from them, because that gives us the best idea of how your chapter functions and how successful your activities are. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you.
Good question.
All right, we've received quite a few questions tonight about the availability of the PowerPoint presentation. What we'll do is we'll post that to the student section of pharmacist.com under those chapter award reports section there. We'll put both this PowerPoint as well as the recording on the website. Another question that we've received from Tara Burks and Tara asked, will chapters 2010, 2011 reports be made available on Dropbox? Unfortunately, we are not going to post last year's reports on Dropbox. So hopefully your chapter has a copy of last year's reports, but those will not be on there. And that's actually a good question, because once we have your reports on Dropbox and once we're completed downloading those, what we're going to do is actually delete all of the files from those reports. And that probably should happen sometime in late July there, once we're done uploading all the information. So it's good that you always keep your own files and utilize this specific folder as a method of getting files from point A to point B being APHA headquarters. Dropbox does have limits of the size that you can have for the number of files and the size of the files and stuff, so we'd like to maintain somewhat of a little bit underneath that amount. So another question, I'm going to open this up. Deborah, if you have the opportunity to utilize your telephone or your microphone with your computer. This is for Deborah Boda. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I wanted to know, I'm sorry, we're a new chapter. Is there a limit to the amount of projects that we can do within the time frame that we're given?
Okay, there isn't a limit to the project that you can do within that time frame. I think the limit really just kind of depends on where you are with your chapter and your activities. You can have as many activities within the chronological list as you want. Whatever you've done, whether it's chapter meetings, anything advocacy-wise, whatever your chapter has done within the reporting cycle, which is from June 1st, 2011 through May 31st, 2012, you can definitely and should include all of those items within your chronological list. What you talk about in your essay within those different sections, that's kind of up to you. Again, take a look at those guidelines because we do ask for specific items and make suggestions for what you should talk about within those areas. But part of that will be at your discretion to decide what's going to help us and the award standing committee best understand what you're doing at your chapter level. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
If there are any other attendees, if you're interested in asking a question, utilize the raise hand function or submit a text question, and we'll put you on the air during the session here. Crystal, at this point, we don't have any other questions, so I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone for attending. If you do think of questions after this evening, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Keith. All of our contact information is available on the APhA-ASP section of pharmacist.com. So have a good evening and happy report writing.